is 7 o'clock on October 27th, 2022. Thank you all for being here. Before I call us to order, I just want to remind you all that all the microphones are live. They pick up everything, even when you are muttering under your breath. Please do not. And no conversations in the room, please. It makes it very, very hard for our clerk to transcribe the recordings and get proper minutes. Thank you very much. Okay. So let me go ahead and call the roll. Marjorie Austin.
Here.
Larry Chooning.
Here.
Bill Goldsmith.
Here.
Mary's going to be late. Steve Holberg.
Here.
Bill Smith.
Here.
Mayor is here. Our illustrious staff is here. Everybody. And thank you all for coming. At this time, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's move for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? There being no discussion, we'll move for a vote. Marjorie?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. Passes. Okay, and now we have the minutes. We have minutes from September 8th. Do we have a motion to approve them, or do we need to discuss?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September 8th, 2022 work session as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, go for a vote. Marjorie?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And Mayor votes yes. Thank you very much. Moving right along. Before we get to the reports, I do want you all to notice that the sidewalks are being repaired. And thanks to the petitions that we have been sending to VDOT, they are finally going to give us that long-awaited four-way stop on Cross Street and Virginia Street. Yay! Okay, now let's get on to reports. Garth, Town Administrator.
Boundary line adjustment, we continue to work on this project. Bay Design has made the requested changes, removing the two parcels of property over on Red Hill. Matt Walker, Heather Lewis, the county attorney, Andrea and I will be scheduling a meeting hopefully for next week to meet again and prepare plans to make a presentation to the Board of Supervisors at their December meeting. We will be making contact with individual board members before then to address any possible concerns that they may have ahead of time. Oyster Festival is scheduled for next week, November 4th and 5th, and we have received the approved permit from VDOT, and the schedule of events is posted out there and on Facebook, and will be listed in the Southside Sentinel. Docks of the Bay has been contacted regarding council's vote to approve repairs to the Marina Pier, main walkway, and the shoreline, and we will be meeting with them next week to get the project underway. Big funds have been approved to be used for this project, which will cover 75% of the $50,000 cost. As the mayor indicated, VDOT has replaced a major portion of the sidewalk on Watling Street. They had previously replaced the sidewalk on the other side of the street in front of the church and a large section in front of Urbanna Market. We're scheduled to also have sidewalk and curbing repairs on Virginia Street and Cross Street, and that's scheduled to take place after the first of the year. This event, the Wine and Oyster Stroll event, was a huge success, I believe, and thank everybody for their hard efforts on that and making it so. This was the first time our museum participated, and we had a very good turnout. Members of the Friends of Urbanna and staff made snacks and served the wine tastings, dressed in period costumes, and gave presentations of the Scottish Baptist Store and the Mitchell map. The Christmas parade plans are underway. Lois Brooks is already making preparations for the event, and it's scheduled for Friday, December 2nd this year. She has contacted the mayor and requesting town council members to participate, and we'll be getting more information to you about that. And the town will be assisting with this project, and we'll be filing for a permit first of next week. We have two presentations on the agenda this evening, the pool committee updates and recommendations from the Urbanna Creek Committee. Both of these groups of volunteers have worked tirelessly on these projects at the direction of town council, and I want to personally thank everybody for their hard work on this. And Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Treasurer's report. Michelle?
As per submitted, if anybody has any questions, let me know. Otherwise, everything's rolling. We're in the Oyster Festival and all the business licenses, and I've prepped all the meals tax forms. So we're moving along there. I spent time with Edmund, so within the next day or two, taxes should be, going out. Remember, we can use the online service to pay for them this year. And, everything's moving, it's fast and furious. On a side note, we will be entering the bucket truck in the Oyster Festival parade. So we are approaching any veteran that flew on that was on a banner locally, so we contacted you, but if anybody knows anyone that would like to partake as a veteran, we would like to honor them in the Oyster Festival parade.
Very good, thank you.
Can I ask a question? The question has to do with the Historic Trust Fund, and that's now at 27,000. Do you have an idea of how much that's grown since the first of the year?
Well, considering that was 21 a year ago, so roughly,
You,
Roughly $7,000.
you spent some money out of that, though, haven't you?
we put some money in, we
Right.
transfer, and then we turn around and took funds out to pay for the painting.
Yeah, so how much was the painting?
6,700.
Okay.
So there's your 7.
Yeah, so we made about 14,000 so far. Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Okay. Very good, let's move on to Finance Committee.
Really, everything with finance and pool is not current. It's all going to be covered, I think, under the Marnie Hart's report and in closed session with the contract.
Okay, thank you. Planning Commission, that would be Mary, and you're going to take that, Roy?
Mary asked me to, Chairman Hampton asked me to say that there wasn't a meeting this last month, but there will be a meeting November 2nd, and an agenda will be made available on the internet.
Thank you. And Water Committee.
Short and sweet. We're winding down. The well project is at the bidding stage right now. We're following Kimley Horn's recommendation to hold off on putting it out to bid till after the first of the year due to the holiday season. Contractors typically don't do a very good job during the holiday season. So we're following the lead with him. The VDH application is in. It probably will be till May of 2023 before it is actually looked at. But they accept the applications, but they don't act on anything right away. The water system GPS equipment. Duncan Parnell, I contacted them on the unit and with questions and the package, and I'm waiting answers on that. The cartograph contract is complete. Thank you, Martha. Let me see, and basically that is it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, now we have time for public comment. Has anyone signed up to speak? No one's on the list? Okay, makes that short. And so is our response. All right, old business. That brings us right to the pool committee financing proposal. Bill, you want to take that, or Marnie going to take that?
Yeah.
There we go.
Awesome. All right, folks, thank you for having us back today. As just a reminder, 2 weeks ago we met, the council voted, and we had approval for the initial proposal that we put in front of council, and that was essentially an authorization of to be able to spend up to $1.1 million to build the pool. Today, we're coming back to go through the financing options that we have available, as well as address some outstanding questions on what the nature of the Tabor funds is in terms of what it can be used for, and whether or not it can be used for the build of the pool project. So like I said, we've conducted additional research since the last session on what the exact language of Dr. Tabor's will includes. We've also looked at the documents to help us establish what his intent was, and we've also spent a good amount of time working with our attorney and staring at Virginia law to make sure that anything that we do here is within the bounds of not only what the will says, but what the law allows us to do. That is that is a very important thing. After our research, we have we've all sort of come to a consensus within the pool committee that the intent of Dr. Tabor, as set forth in the will, was to allow the town to use the money in the funds for projects such as the build of the pool. We're going to go through 3 additional funding options today, building on the materials that we presented 2 weeks ago. The 2 additional options that we've explored are essentially doing a one-time assessment of Urbanna citizens to fund the build of the pool, and then also looking at exploring having a bigger loan. So the option 1, which is what we put forth to the council 2 weeks ago, included a smaller loan in the amount of about $100,000. The options that we have to look at tonight include not only the $100,000 option, but an option for $600,000 loan, and then an option that actually looks at obtaining a loan for the full $1.1 million for the project. We actually, so not to jump to the conclusion here, but the pool committee, after the analysis, does recommend moving forward with the first option that we presented 2 weeks ago, and that is to use the Tabor Fund for the reasons we will go through tonight. And then next steps are what we'd love to get out of tonight is sort of consensus from council that on the direction we'd like to take for the funding so that we can kick off fundraising in earnest and then enable construction to begin so that we can have this pool open for the community by May of 2023, which sounds really crazy to say out loud. Okay, jumping right in. So this slide, there's a lot of words on this slide, and I'm not going to read all of them, but you've got them in the paper handouts that are available in the back if you don't have them. I am going to touch high level on some key components here. We thought it was really important to provide a timeline and some background information on key things that have happened over the past essentially 60 years, as well as highlight some additional facts, because there's a lot of I don't know what the right, how to say it. There's a lot of ideas on what the terms of the will included or what the funds are able to use. And my intent here tonight is to really lay out, this is a black and white of what is in documented, either the minutes of town council meetings in the past, court decrees, or the will itself. So that's the intent of providing this information. So the Tabor Fund was originally established from a grant of Dr. Tabor in his will, which entered probate on August 11, 1966. The fund, the original funds that were made available through that grant were $256,695 that served as the principal basis of the fund, and at that time, $39,391.80 were available for the town to use as for whatever sort of charitable is not the right word, but purpose within the intent of the fund, or as stated in the will.
It should have been 36,000, not
36,000. That's a typo. So that's some basic information on what was originally granted by Dr. Tabor, and then what was available for the town's use at that time. The town has, throughout the years, approached the circuit court. This issue of can you use the funds that Dr. Tabor left us is not the first time this topic has come up. It's actually come up quite a bit over the years. So in 1967, the Urbanna Town Council actually approached the circuit court to help get guidance on administering the trust and more clarity on certain provisions of the will. The court, following the court attorney essentially filing for information or guidance with the court at that time, issued a decree in January 23rd of 1968 that said basically that the income from the fund may only be used for charitable purposes, and that if Urbanna wanted to, essentially Urbanna could continue to come back to the court for help in guidance in administrating the fund. There's two parts of that that are really important. The first is, in the will, it refers to the term income, not interest. That's been one of the things that we've talked about. Folks have said, hey, the only interest can be used from the fund. That's not true. It's income from the fund versus the principal, which was the initial money that Dr. Tabor made available to the town through the probate of his will. The second important thing in there is the reference of the court in the decree to Urbanna having the right to come back to the circuit court for guidance, but it didn't require it. It was very much if Urbanna so desires, Urbanna can come back, but if Urbanna wants to make the decision on how to use the fund, administrate the fund itself, Urbanna can do that without having to come back to the court. The council's use of funds. So over the years, like I said, council and the town have, thought about using the funds in various ways. There was reference to building a medical clinic, using the funds for that, and a swimming pool were two of the items we were able to actually find directly referenced in the town's minutes. But we weren't able to find any action where the town attorney or anybody else for that matter actually moved forward to file a petition in circuit court, which is another sort of one of those things that are out there that we have gone to the court before and they've never granted the town the right to use the money for these purposes. It's not on record. It's not on record that we approached them, and it's for like a formal decree, and there's nowhere on record that the court has actually denied our use of the fund. So the first pool, the pool that needs replacing. On March 4th, 1968, and this is all reflected in the town meetings for the meeting that occurred that day, council made a decision to construct the original pool. On April 23rd of that same year, the minutes show that the build of the pool was awarded to a company called Hodge & Stokes. From what we can put together, the town did not go directly to use the Tabor funds out the gate. What the town did is essentially funded the pool with general fund money, and then on record of June 1st, 1907, the matter of the cost of building the pool came back to council. And a motion was made, seconded, and passed to transfer $36,391.81, just as Roy said on the last page where I had the typo. They made the motion to transfer the money from the Tabor Fund to the general fund of the town. And again, that was all it wasn't a direct payment for the pool. It was made to offset the money that the town had already paid for that pool. So the money has been used for the pool in the past. It was just made through a transfer from the fund to the general fund to reimburse the town for those purposes.
Can I ask a question? The original 36,000, which comes from, where do you have that reference? The second block. It should be 36,391.81.
Right.
Yes.
That's,
Yeah.
that's,
We said that.
We
That-
said that already.
Yep, that's,
and may I finish?
Yeah.
There's a logic here. Okay, so that money was used to fund the pool, the first pool. That was the 36,000.
yes.
That was not interest from that 256,000, was it, or was it not?
It was an amount that was told to the town council by the representative of the bank that held.
The Bank of Middlesex.
He said that 36,000, whatever it was, is available, and that's what they said.
So-
There is
So
no
it's not
mention-
part of the,
There is,
it's-
now I can speak,
Yeah,
there is
go
no
ahead.
mention as to what that is, whether it was interest or anything else. It just said, he said, this money is available from the fund.
As I read
From the
those,
Tabor Trust?
as I read the minutes,
It's not a trust.
a couple
It's
of
not
months
Tabor
ago.
Trust, it's a
Tabor Fund.
it's not a trust, yeah. As I read that, it seemed to imply that that was interest that had been earned before the money was transferred over to the town, because the fund existed and belonging to Dr. Tabor before it was transferred to us.
So in 2 years,
It's hard to
He-
determine from,
you're talking 36,000 was earned by 256 in 2 years. At that point, and what were interest rates?
we don't,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't
and
know
that's what I'm saying. It's, you don't want to make the representation that it was distributed from. No, I'm just saying, it's not from the Tabor Fund. It's.
Yes,
it-
it was from the Tabor
From the
Fund.
Tabor
That's what
Fund?
the minutes, that we actually have the minutes from the town council meeting
Uh-huh.
where this is documented.
So
But that
that,
was
That it
but
was
that,
transferred from the Tabor Fund.
but that didn't come out of the 256, right?
No, the fund existed before it was transferred to the town. And it seems from the minutes
It had
that we read
accumulated.
that that had already accumulated, and they sent over to us the initial amount plus that which had accumulated on the side. And it appears that that is what the banker said, go ahead and use this.
I think what you're asking is, the 256, was that 256 and there was $36,000 hanging out there separately?
Yeah.
Or was the 36 part of the 256? And I don't think we know that.
Apparently not. Okay.
We don't want to get into speculating.
No, I'm just asking. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you're
But
presenting facts, and
I understand.
I don't know which facts are.
I understand
So-
your question, and I don't think we know whether,
that's-
after this was paid, whether it was down to 220 or whether it was still 256 and the 36 was hanging out there from a separate
We
source.
Okay,
can,
you don't know.
Bill, we can follow up on that. I'm pretty sure the way that I read it, it's the two, and Roy, jump in here if I'm off base. It's the 256 was the principal, and the smaller amount was the amount that was available of that 256 for the town to use. So 256 minus the 36 is what the core principal was. This is the money that this bank at Middlesex, the officer said, which was the administrator of the fund at that time, said, hey, Urbanna, you can use this much of the fund. We don't know anything else beside that because we're only going on what the record is
Yeah, because you
normally.
had almost 4 years of accumulation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so those are the basic facts. Again, everything that we have here is either as stated in the will or as documented in court decree and or the meeting from the applicable council meetings that we reference. All right, so here's where some of the fun legalese comes in. And Andrea, you may need to phone a friend on this one. But we try to keep it as simple as possible, folks. All right, I mentioned this earlier. The Tabor Fund enables the trustee to use the income from the fund for the purposes stated in the will. It does not reference interest anywhere. The VA code defines what is income and what is principal. The VA code, if you guys want to geek out on some fun code reading later tonight, you can go Google these sections, and you'll actually find where it lists out different types of income and different types of principal. So it's illustrative for folks to take a read of. Another provision, though, that's super critical is even though the code says, hey, this is generally what we consider income and what we consider principal, VA code also grants fiduciaries, which the trustee or the administrator would fall into that category, the power to adjust the designations of assets between income and principal. This again goes back to the general powers of a trustee to be able to do what he or she needs to do to manage the assets in the fund or in the trust. And so I've got the language quoted here, but this 64-138 states that a fiduciary in a record without court approval may adjust between income and principal if the fiduciary determines the exercise of the powers to adjust will assist the fiduciary to administer the trust or estate impartially. Okay, so this is one sentence. Again, there's a much bigger code section that if you want to go back and read it, it provides reasonable guardrails for when the trustee or the fiduciary can adjust the assets between income and principal. We went through that. We talked with Andrea and feel very comfortable that nothing that we're doing here would violate that provision of the code. The last thing I have here is, again, what I just said, which is the code grants the trustee, which is Barbara, the general and specific powers to enable them to administer the trust. That includes buying and selling of assets for the trust. It also includes borrowing money against or for the trust.
May I ask you a question? The trust language, though, does it not limit what the mayor can do without consent of council?
Great question. So the mayor, what I'm talking about is sort of generally what is the rights under the law. The will specifically says that the mayor is going to be the fiduciary and administer the trust for the town. However, the mayor needs to obtain council's approval before he or she exercises that right.
Thank you for clarification.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions?
And further clarification is, according to Davenport, who holds the funds, the finance committee must report to the council, and then council authorizes by vote to the mayor.
Thank you, Garth.
You don't think maybe it'd be a good idea to have Davenport come talk to us, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We've already
think,
talked to him. We
no,
talked to him
come
last
to
No, I mean,
us, or council.
Yeah.
Come to council.
Come to council.
They've already come?
No.
No. I just think that'd be a good idea.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yep. And so the slide that we just went through, the timeline, the background, and then the information we found in Virginia Code and the current state of the law is why we feel very comfortable making the recommendations that we are of. We feel that it is within the town council and the mayor's rights to use the funds to satisfy the requirement in the will of income, as well as to move forward with or without the court's approval. Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. This slide gives you a very, very high-level overview of the contracts involved in the build of this project. We're not going to go into the specific terms and conditions of the contract. I believe there'll be closed sessions with council to walk through all of that. But I wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same page in terms of what we're doing here. So there's two buckets of contracts. There's pre-construction contracts, and then there's the actual construction for the pool and the amenity contracts that need to be signed. We've already actually awarded Bay Design the work for the site prep work. That is $47,000 contract. It's already been approved by council and is within the current budget. And so that $47,000 for the purposes of being sort of explicit about what is within the 1.1 million that we've talked about, that money is outside of the 1.1 million that we've talked about. That's already been budgeted and taken care of. The architectural design, so a company by the name, or Jim Irby was awarded the contract for that. The total cost of that is right around $27,000. That will provide us with all the architecture work to allow us to begin to build the facilities. Paddock Pools is the company that we've selected to actually build the pool itself. We're coming in at a cost of about $430,000 for that. Contract still has not been signed with that, but we have received the formal bid and approval on that one. And then we have I've got the paddock pools there. I've actually got it in there twice. And then the general construction. So in addition to sort of building the pool, we've also got to make sure that we're building the bathhouse and the walkways and the fencing and all of that. And so that would be estimated under the remaining $600,000 that we have in the budget for that. Garth, we have not received that yet, have we?
No.
Okay.
And
He can't get that until, supply that until he gets the architecture's
right,
design.
that's why the architect is next, because the whole package is gonna be included with that, so that we have something that the general contractor can tell us how much this is gonna cost to build it.
Got it. But that should be, from all the conversations that we have had, within the total budget number of 1.1 million for the pool construction. So again, this is just to give a little bit of clarity into everything that's involved in this project from a contract perspective, and also to give a little bit of flavor of why it's so important that we start moving, because there's some linear components here. We can't start the next phase until you have certain items accomplished. Okay, moving on to the funding options for the pool project. Option one is really the option we reviewed 2 weeks ago at session. This is one that has a much smaller loan involved and leverages $500,000 from the Tabor Fund. Option two is essentially, we've looked at two more options, which is obtaining a $600,000 loan, as well as what the math would look on a $1.1 million loan that we would then pay back through the fundraising and other things. And then option three is apply a special assessment to town residents. For clarity's sake, all of the options that we're walking through have the core component of fundraising, CARES, and leveraging other publicly available revenue sources. The only one that we haven't included those items in are the, I would say, option two, I think it's 2C, where we asked for the 1.1 million straight out in a full loan. All right, again, so this is funding option one. This is the one that we've previously reviewed. And this gets us to the 1.1 million through using and or borrowing 500,000 from the Tabor Fund, 200,000 from the sale of charter memberships. For those of you who weren't with us, those are essentially a lifelong or a life of the pool long membership that will attach to the residents of each house that we will sell as a initial fundraising item to fund the pool. Fundraising and donations, we've got all sorts of cool ideas, from like build a brick, you guys have all seen the bricks where you put your name on it and you donate money, to naming, the park benches after different people, and, the signage that you can put up. Lots of really cool ideas that we're looking at there. CARES, we estimate 200,000, and then again, a loan of $100,000 to get us to the 1.1 million here. This is, we feel, like I said before, that we're within the scope of the law, within the scope of the trust to be able to do this. Our preferred approach, however, would be to pay back a portion of the funds that we use But we need to make sure that that payment schedule is flexible, and we're doing it on a practical basis, knowing in some years we may be able to provide more, some years we may have to provide less. I mean, everyone knows sort of where the economy is heading right now, and there might be some years where you can't pay anything at all. So that would be our recommendation, that there's flexibility maintained in that, that payback schedule. And we also don't want to have any penalties or things like that that would hit the town, you know, if they weren't able to make a payment or something like that for a given year. All right, funding option 2, obtain a more sizable loan. So we use 6.75% loan at 10 years. That interest rate will continue to go up the longer we wait to get loan out. There's no sign of the Fed easing in that department anytime soon. And so the two options we have here are 2A, replace the Tabor Fund with a loan. And the math on that, so if you do 2A, $600,000 loan, that is going to result in the town having about a $7,000 a year payment. A month, sorry, $7,000 a month payment, or $84,000 a year. So we've included the per tax rate. If we were not able to absorb this cost and pay this loan off within the current tax rate, what we would have to do to increase the town's taxes to pay this off over the stated period of time. And that math is right there for folks to see. Option 2B, I don't have the breakout here, but it's essentially you go from a $600,000 loan to $900,000 loan. That's $10,400 a month, or $125,000 a year. And then the Big Daddy loan, $1.1 million, you're looking at $11,500 a month, or $138,000 a year. So some pretty sizable amount of debt that the town would need to take on if we go down this route, and hefty monthly payments.
Okay, one of the factors that's impacting your assumptions is the time over which that money's borrowed. And of course, with some loans, we're not able to take them because the payback is so short. Am I not correct? That's what you were explaining at the last meeting.
Yes, but there are other loans that we are exploring.
Well, that's what I'm asking about, because I think one of the ideas that was bandied about was borrowing from the Tabor Fund, setting up a note, and then you basically got flexibility in how long a term that can be paid back for. So are you making any assumptions about the length of payback if you borrow from the Tabor Fund, so that the Tabor Fund is actually earning money back from the town, and that replaces some of its income that it's lost?
I think we have options to go there. This is not the Tabor Fund loan
Tabor Fund
analysis.
loan, this is like
This would be
commercial.
going to a commercial loan option.
And the terms would be what, how many years?
We ran the math with an assumption of 6.5 interest rate over 10 years was
10 years.
Yep.
That's pretty short time frame. I mean, I'm just,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
but
making observations
Yeah.
here.
Right.
I'm not critical. I'm
But
trying to understand.
at least I think that's fairly typical of a commercial loan. They usually do it, you know, it might be less on a monthly basis, but the ones that I've had were 20-year amortization and 10-year balloon.
Yeah, but if you actually made a loan from the Tabor Fund and dragged those terms out over a longer period of time, you're essentially keeping the money in-house, number one.
And that is one of the things that we're
I'm not
consider.
sure that I am on board with agreeing with any of this yet in terms of the financing, but I just wanted to understand what your assumptions were.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
And that's part of it. We do feel like we can outright use the money from the Tabor Fund for all the reasons we've went through. We also, definitely understand the benefits of replacing that money. It goes to how flexible or not do you want to be. My preference is to keep it more flexible, to give the town the ability to flex up or down, given the economic conditions that we may have. Because it is, at the end of the day, all for the benefit of the town. But that is definitely something that we can look at. Okay. All right, so that's option 1 and option 2. Option 3, I'm sure this is every citizen of Urbana's favorite option, apply the special assessment. And so we looked at if we didn't use the Tabor Fund money and we took that 500,000, what would it essentially cost the homeowners if we did it? And you could, of course, do this in a 1-year assessment, a 2-year assessment, however you framed it. For the sake of simplicity, though, we did a 1-year assessment. And if you take the average Urbanna, the average price or value of a home in Urbanna, which is $280,000, that would raise taxes from $588 a year to $1,680. So it's essentially for 1 year, the tax bill would be over 3 times what it is today. That's again a pretty stiff pill to swallow. I know last session we were talking about folks not paying their water bills and having to move forward with some collection activities on that. And the economy is moving forward with a recession from all the economic factors we have. So from my perspective, with those things in particular, this is not one that I recommend.
Marnie, I have a question. How many households are you using for your assumptions? In other words, if I take, so that's my question. How many households do you?
491.
491. So you take the 500,000
Well,
divided by.
Steve, it's
490.
based on a tax rate, and every
Okay, so either way, you come out with about $1,000 per household.
yeah.
Either way, you figured it.
Oh, you're talking about spreading it evenly,
Spreading it evenly amongst the 491 properties.
right?
Now, some of those are rented, so you have some landlords out there with 5, 6, 7 properties, and they're going to get hit with a $6,000 or $7,000 assessment.
That's the
Okay.
the penalty you pay as a
No, no,
landlord.
no,
But
I understand.
but
Yeah.
the way this is figured out is based on the tax assessment that would be necessary to raise this.
Yeah, I get
And
it.
actually, I noticed there was a problem. It's an additional 40 cents. It's not.
Yeah.
So the total tax rate would be 61 cents for 1 year, not 21 to 40. It would actually.
I'm just trying to figure out if I have 491 households, divided into 500,000, what does that come out to? It's like,
Yeah,
yes.
you can do it that way.
You could do it. You could just do it at $1,000 per household. Yeah.
I mean, that's the simplest way I know to do it. So
Right, but we did it with the property value so that the
That's
people
cool.
that have a more expensive house pay more than the people that don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool.
This is an illustrative example.
Yeah,
What Steve said is exactly right. You could take the total households and say everybody's going to pay the same for the pool. We ran the numbers trying to use the actually assessed value of the property so that the folks who have the lesser value homes would pay less of or carry less of the burden.
And something else that's important to point out is that only covers half the cost of the pool. We're still dependent with this sample, with that,
charter membership.
with that, yeah, we're still depending on
20
CARES money
people-
and other
20
sources.
people committing $10,000 in addition to the $1,000.
Right.
So
Yeah,
do
which
we
would be a
think we
big
have
push.
20 people. We got 20 people here that, I mean, in Urbana that would do that.
Not that.
Okay.
Right.
That's
that-
but that's the reason for bringing it up.
No, I understand.
That
but
creates a.
I'm trying to ask these questions so
No,
that
and
people
that's-
who
and
are
that's right.
here understand what we're framing as a challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that becomes you're asking people to pay a special assessment and then you're asking them to make donations, which is another reason
Not to do this.
not to move forward with
Right.
this, with this option. Okay,
And then we're still asking them to support it on an annual basis.
How much on an annual basis?
That option is a no-go.
Option 1, so this slide just gives a summary of all the things that we've just talked about. Like I mentioned before, the pool committee is recommending we move forward with option 1, which is use borrow Tabor Park Fund versus moving forward with obtaining the more sizable loan and or the special assessment. So I'm not going to go through all the pros and cons there, but but we really tried to be objective as we were looking at all the different options here. All right, so that brings us to the end. So we've walked through sort of the core. Can we use the funds? What is the precedence there? You know, what are our funding options? We are on a little bit of a timeline, as we've talked about, in terms of needing to getting if we want to have this pool by May of next year. And so the next steps are essentially like obtain council's point of view on the direction for our funding options here. And then we can enable the construction to commence, which will include some of the closed sessions reviewing the contract. And we've got to kick off our formal fundraising efforts. The donations and fundraising is going to be a big part of whatever we do for this project. In the appendix too, for those of you who are interested, this is the actual relevant language of the trust. I skipped over this, and it's an important provision. The last paragraph that starts with because, I'll read just a little. Because this goes to Dr. Tabor's intent. Because conditions so change with time, I make no specific designation of the type of community improvement for which this trust is established or of the administration machinery through which its purpose shall be accomplished. It is not my desire or intention to limit my gift to the establishment and maintenance of those community facilities and services services today to tend to the benefit of the amelioration of the condition of ordered society, such as parks, recreation centers, hospitals, or literally and educational institutions, but to provide the means for establishing and maintaining any such facilities for the residents of the town of Urbanna, which may appear to future generations to be the promotive of the same purposes. So you've got within the will itself the actual language that says Dr. Tabor wanted this money to be used for the benefit of the town, listed some examples that were within his sort of purview of what he thought it could be used for. But he also said, hey, the future, things do change, and I want to enable the town to be able to use the funds consistent with sort of his original intent, but not lock it to any specific purpose.
Marnie, I have another point. The second paragraph in Article 7 clearly says to expend the income therefrom through such agencies, blah, blah, blah. Now that's where we get hung up, those of us who are traditionalists, who have followed a certain pattern over many years of only using the income for the various charitable purposes, whether it be for fire department, rescue squad, library, and there may be other projects from time to time that we've used it for. Where I get hung up is the broad powers that are defined as being held by the trustee, having an ability to define what's principal and what's principal and what is income, okay? And income is measured between 2 points. In other words, we've turned in financial reports for years now that say each year how much income we earn, and that's what we use. And what's left on the balance sheet is the principal. And so I get hung up on an accounting definition of what income is available to be used. Income is relative to a point in time, 12 months out of eternity, that is earned. You know, the interest is earned over a period of time, 12 months or whatever. If we haven't used it and council has made a decision to roll that money back into principal, that's new principal. And so, yeah, I understand that the trustee has broad powers, but I think they also have to stick within the common accepted definitions of what principal and interest happen to be. And that is my bugaboo, or the problem that I have with the arrangement of taking money from the Tabor Fund without having had a response to our request to the court for some guidance on this. I just want to make that clear.
I appreciate
Okay?
that, Steve.
It's just a different perspective.
The terms of the trust do not talk about interest. It talks about income, and it doesn't define what income is.
No, but income has each year
You're different.
no, it's reported by Davenport. You get a report from Davenport each year at 1099. It says capital gains dividends were this, interest was this, regular dividends were this. That's the income for that period of time.
That's realized
What
income.
earned, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Whatever's realized on a 1099. You can't report, pie in the sky numbers.
I think, Steve, that's why the code enables the fiduciary to have some leeway in how they're classifying these assets, because it isn't black and white in every situation. I mean, you've got everything from tangible personal property to real estate to funds and various investment vehicles.
Yeah.
You've got sales of things, you've got interests that come out. And so it can get very complicated. And so I do believe that is why the Code of Virginia enables and specifically says that the fiduciary has the power to make the final decision on the classifications of assets. And the code also goes in to talk about like I said, what the definition of income versus principal is. In 64.2-1048, income means money or other property a fiduciary receives as a current return from principal. Income includes a part of a receipt from a sale, exchange, or liquidation of a principal asset to this percent provided in Articles 4. So this is something, there's general accounting laws, there's very black and white what you can do or not from an IRS perspective. There's also the estate and other applicable law that we have to take into consideration on
And
this.
I understand your point of view. It's just that I happen not to agree with it. And I don't think any convincing will do
The
that.
law is the law, man. I'm a lawyer. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm an accountant.
Thank you, council, for the
Let me-
time today.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
In the scheme of the stuff that you got up there with the dollars and all this, where are grants?
So we've got, this is just option one we have here. Fundraising and donations, CARES, 200,000, and then grants is another. We're gonna still continue to look at whatever other publicly available resources they have, including grant
And
writing.
grants would, the intent was grants would go to replenish the Tabor Trust first.
Okay, I think I have a motion I want to put on the floor.
Okay.
I want to talk about it first. The Harris Fund, and I'm puzzled, Madam Mayor and Garth, why this hadn't been brought up before in regards to this and spelled out in some manner of speaking. Ms. Harris left $38 million to Middlesex County. Now, it's being administrated by a group which includes the Northern Neck and Middlesex County. A large amount of this money, every year, they do the same thing. They're not taking 38 million, they're dispersing the interest,
Income.
whatever you want to call it,
That's their definition.
to
We have
these
to go there
communities.
again.
And Wayne Jesse is our representative on the Board of Supervisors, and he's not our representative, but he is our representative on that board for Middlesex County. And I would like to make a motion to direct staff to look into the possibility immediately of how to explore the use to obtain Harris Fund monies and to explore how we can get it. Staff.
I'll second that.
They've just given $50,000 to the Cook's Corner playground thing out there, and I mean, I just feel like this pool,
We're entitled to
we,
that money.
we're not so much entitled, not
but
entitled.
We
But-
could ask.
but-
We're entitled to consideration of that money, and they
Yes.
have been giving
Well-
it to other places instead of us in the past. And that's a very good motion.
You can't say they haven't given it to us if we haven't asked.
No, I'm not saying
No,
they haven't given it.
I'm just
I don't
saying
want
that's-
anything negative.
That's
to come out of
Larry's
this.
point.
This is
No,
not
absolutely
negative.
not.
We're trying to do something positive.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing they gave the 50,000 to the Cook's Corner thing. But I think maybe they might give us that and maybe more for something of this magnitude and the impact that it has on the community.
I've
Not
never
just
heard of
Urbanna.
the Harris
I
Fund.
think it's a great idea.
So a motion's been made and seconded. We've had some discussion. Any more discussion? You want to take a vote? All right, let's vote. Marjorie,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and Mayor votes yes. Okay, staff, you are directed to contact Wayne Jesse and motivate him to act on our behalf as well as
Well,
possible.
find out how to do
Thank
it.
you.
Find out how we go
If we
about it.
can even.
Well, I know we can.
N-
We're nonprofit, aren't we?
For the record, Larry, you invited me to go with you to meet with these people on this grant. And you and I talked about the possibility of looking at them for grant funds.
We have.
correct?
That is correct.
And you and I talked earlier in the week about doing the same thing. So I just, until then, I'd never heard of the Harris grants.
Okay.
I hadn't heard of the Harris Grant either.
I
Harris
have a-
Fund.
I-
They'd never heard of it. You've heard of it.
I have a question that I'd like clarified. Some time ago, council asked for guidance from the Circuit Court of Middlesex County as to their opinion on whether or not we could withdraw funds from the Tabor Fund. And what is the status of that? Has it been assigned to a judge? Do we have any progress on that front?
We do have progress on the front. They don't assign cases to a judge as they would say in Fairfax. We have really one judge who
Yeah,
circulates throughout the circuit.
okay.
Um,
I saw
and-
5 judges listed or 4 judges listed, and I was like, how do they figure out which one is
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Usually the judge that we have is Judge Shaw.
Shaw? Okay.
Because his dad was the judge. And the other judges sit in the other counties.
Okay.
It is a possibility that we could get a sub-judge, but usually it's Judge Shaw. And so we have had progress. We are finalizing the notice to the fiduciary because I think they have to be notified, and then we'll be setting a court date.
The fiduciary is,
Davenport?
It was the bank, yeah, originally, what was it, Bank of Middlesex originally?
yeah, does that get confusing because we have a different
Yes.
fiduciary now? So what happens is the judge that's working on this or whoever is trying to track that is going to look for the original bank first?
Correct,
How-
and I did do a.
You did do an
I did the
explanation?
whole
Yeah.
Genealogy.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was
you.
hard.
So they haven't assigned anything yet?
No, sir.
Okay, all right.
Okay? Marnie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. That brings us to Garth, under old business, sale of the old building.
What, if we have old business with regards to these financing options, wouldn't it be appropriate to have a motion to table for further consideration of these financing proposals?
We're going into closed session.
You're going into you're
Actually,
going,
no, we are not gonna go into closed session.
if you don't
We are
have,
not.
a
About the pool.
very simple principle, if you do not have.
Wait, stop. I want to hear what they're saying. So we're not going into closed session because we don't have all the contracts. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
yeah, we've got the contract we need to talk about.
So,
And we are going into closed session.
If we could maybe just have a recess at the end of the meeting prior to a closed meeting, so I could just talk with the
Okay.
town manager.
All right.
I think my problem is, why go into a closed discussion, closed meeting, to discuss a contract that we can't support because we don't have a financing plan yet? We have options, but we have not agreed to which option we'll use.
The contract that we're going to discuss is the contract with the architect and we can't know what we're gonna finance without having a plan. And the amount of money that we have available will more than cover the architect costs
Where are you getting that from?
from the pool fund reserves.
Okay.
All right, have we exhausted that for now? Can we go on to the sale of the old building now?
Yep.
Garth? Do you have anything to report on that?
Yeah. You should have in your packet, the building is sitting over there on Cross Street, and we have, a guarantee to, of, if we purchase this building, we have a minimum guarantee that we would be able to sell that old building for $150,000. We have an appraisal that values the building at $367,000. And, we're recommending that the finance committee, we met and discussed various options, sale or lease, and after consideration, and considering the town's option to purchase our current town hall building, it's recommended that the town sell the building, and we're suggesting that we send correspondence to the 3 local realtors in the town for consideration of services, and then have the finance committee look and review, their responses and put the building on the market.
Now, did we not discuss this at the work session? That, I thought you were going to contact the realtors.
Oh, I thought we just did the authorization for the appraisal, but I can make a motion to authorize the town staff to begin to process the selling of the town property at 45 Cross Street.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. Marjorie?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mary votes yes. Motion passes, thank you. Is that it on that, Garth?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could I
Uh,
need some clarification on something. What happens if Garth receives a bid or an offer? You're going to bring that to us?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has
all
to.
right. That's good.
And then it has to go to a public hearing.
Yeah, it has to
That's
be a
good.
public hearing.
Thank you for that. Just one clarification.
Following the law. Okay. On to new business. The Urbana Creek Committee, recommendations.
Hello, thank you so much for having us. There's several members of the committee here tonight. And the committee was appointed last March to study the waterfront property owned by the town of Urbana, and we are ready to make our recommendations. As you know, the committee was formed after the Urbana Planning Commission made its recommendations for the property at Virginia Street and the waterfront. We were tasked with looking at all town property. And as a group, we have had many different views on the best use. But after lively debate at the first meeting, we set about making a master list of priorities. Any and all ideas were welcomed. Some of the ideas mentioned were improving the boat ramp, adding a dinghy dock for large sailboats and others to use, ensuring tall ships had access to Urbana Harbor, repairing the town bridge, marina bridge, optimizing the current marina by installing floating docks to replace the finger piers, upgrading supporting facilities and policies, improving waterfront event space and marketing it better, adding informative signage throughout town and the marina, and joining the Blue Water Trail System using the information and history of the harbor written by Larry Tuning. The committee met 9 times from March through October to discuss ideas, gather information, and formulate plans. The group was very collegial and the meetings were very productive. We met with officials from VMRC and the Boating Infrastructure Grant Program. In addition, reports and studies were administered by Docks of the Bay and Bay Design. The Colonial Seaport Foundation was consulted, as were various other entities and individuals who provided a wealth of information to the committee. Not all items on the wish list could be delivered, but most items on the list have been addressed. Additional problems were also uncovered through the research and fact-gathering process of the committee. The committee formed a consensus on the findings and recommendations, and all members were in favor. The recommendations of the committee are as follows. Repair and extend the existing boat ramp. This has already been completed. Mitigate erosion under the main pier at the marina and beach areas, and I believe this was voted on or begun at the last meeting. Create a kayak access launch point at the north end of the marina by relocating the fence and clearing the area to create a beach access point. Mike will explain later, but we will also be removing part of the north end of the marina, the ramp, that will also give us quite a bit of additional footage up there. And then we also suggest moving the kayak storage area to this place and adding more informational signage so it's clear where to go. We suggest adding mooring balls in the eastern section of Urbanna to encourage large sailboat traffic. We suggest building a dinghy dock at Virginia Street to complement the added mooring balls and to provide additional dinghy access to town. We suggest landscaping the area next to the road to make a small park. We also want to add signage indicating where all things are within the marina. We also want to improve the safety and accessibility of the north end of the town marina dock by removing current finger piers and adding floating piers. This will also help mitigate the erosion currently being experienced. We want to continue with the remainder of the town marina docks, which will be in 3 different phases until all are completed. We asked to repair or replace the town marina bridge in the next few years. Currently, the bridge can accommodate large trucks and emergency vehicles. We did have an engineer study that and give us recommendations, and while it does need to be repaired, that needs to be something that's looked at and all options covered. Garth met with the Middle Peninsula Planning Commission, and that they are very willing to help assist with that project and the repair and replacement of that bridge. We are also a federal port still. Urbanna was one of the largest ports in colonial times, so we are still designated a federal port, and there are grant funds available as well since we are a federal port. And so we think all these discussions should continue and solutions for replacement explored. For the projects described above, some of the costs are minimal, such as creating the kayak launch. Some funding is also already allocated or grant funds are available. Finally, the Waterfront Committee recommends they continue to meet and work with council to ensure the above items are completed and to assess additional needs. So Mike Jolly will stand and kind of explain things a little bit more, and if you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer. Mike is, and Gary Lister was also on the committee. Steve was as well.
Thank you.
All right, my name is Mike Jolly, and I want to thank council for allowing me to serve on this committee. It's been a wonderful experience, and we've all worked well, and I believe that the entire committee, has the best interest of the town, and we all agree that the marina and that area down on the waterfront should be the shining star of Urbanna. I mean, we have something there that a lot of other towns don't have in the area, so we should make good use of it. So what I'd like to do now, Sarah Jane explained kind of the overview, so if council has any questions about specific sections of them, I will try to explain them the best I can from kind of a construction and aspect of phasing them, if you will. This committee, although we did gather information on sizes and scope of work and getting some cost information to give to council or give to staff so that we would have some kind of idea on cost, the committee really didn't get into funding options and all that. But we did find out that there's significant grant monies out there for this type of work to cover a majority of the work, up to 75% possibly. And at least what we've been told, they're not really that hard to get. They've just got to do the paperwork and get them. So if council has any specific questions or areas. I can go over Broadview if you want me to do that, or I can take direct questions.
Why don't you, since we have this beautiful aerial view, and I know that Sarah Jane was talking about getting rid of the ramp at the north end,
Yeah,
and
what
you
we're
want to
talking
go
about.
ahead and point that out, and
Okay.
also the bridge that she's talking about, which isn't actually a
Yeah,
bridge.
What we're talking about, and what council, I think, voted on a couple of weeks ago about going ahead and authorizing the mitigation process. So basically, from the center section of the marina right here, where that fixed dock comes out, that ultimately would be left, and the stabilization will happen in the beach area from here all the way out. And in order to do that, we have to remove the bridge in order to get access in there. And what that does in turn is frees up more beach space. What we will ultimately end up with is the mitigation of the beach area and the erosion. There's some erosion of the foundation underneath the office here and the center section. We'll end up with plus or minus 113 linear feet of beach space, of which on this end will be where the kayak launch area would be from the beach.
Where the white section is at the end?
Correct, right?
Yeah.
right-
Okay.
Right here.
From this
Yep.
point over.
Right.
So basically, we'll be losing some slips on the north end.
Be losing what?
Some
No, we will not lose any slips at all. This all happens behind this dock section that will be eventually, as part of the proposal you'll see in your package, this is the first phase one section of the renovation of the marina that would be, this fixed dock section would be taken out. It would be floaters in there with 40-foot finger piers coming out. And we end up with exactly the same number of slips, but they'll be deeper, which would, in turn, will attract larger boats, and we can get, theoretically, get more rent.
When you use the term beach area, that's why I thought beach.
Well, here's
Well,
what
it is-
happens.
It is
Right.
beach,
As
at
you-
low tide.
As you,
With the dock out in front of it.
Well, it is a dock out in front of it, but even at low tide, you still have, 6 or 8 feet there of navigable space that
The-
you could take, you could put a kayak in and you could go out that end.
The difference here primarily is that's being converted to floating docks
Mm-hmm.
on that end. The ramp there on the right, you can see the boat,
Right.
that's going to disappear, which improves your access
Right.
to that beach, because you
Right.
don't have to go under the ramp anymore. And I understand you're also going to move the fence, which is there
The-
about 4 feet.
The fence, we
Yep.
had the north end of the property line resurveyed or surveyed, and what was found is the fence is actually inside of the marina property by plus or minus 4 feet. I think it's more like 6, but it's, there's property to gain there on that end.
Isn't
will
that
allow-
the area that's closed off that says private property do not
That's,
enter?
that's it. Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about
But we
4
own
feet.
more of that
But
than-
we own, okay.
We
We
own more of
own
it.
we could move the fence back 4 more feet and still be on marina or town
Okay.
property.
And
we
the,
found
and the bridge,
original,
Correct.
markers,
Yeah.
from the survey,
Yeah.
and we've had it resurveyed.
yeah. And the bridge that Sarah Jane was talking about is actually not a bridge, but it's the culvert
Right.
there, right there where
Yeah.
he's pointing out.
Yeah, we had the engineers look at that, and they determined that the bridge, even though it does need some work in the future, because it's so short, that when heavy vehicles like fire trucks or ambulances or any kind of service-related vehicles, the wheels are not on the entire bridge at the same time, so they don't feel it.
The weight's dispersed.
Right.
The weight.
Yeah, this first kayak trail is a big circle. It takes in from the bridge to the jetty. Do you have any thoughts as to whether we should, you've told me where to start.
How many times are
Should
you
we
gonna ask that
Should we
question?
go east or west?
Absolutely.
North or south?
Larry, and I told in our meeting last week, I said, we gotta answer Larry. So I would use that northern point right there.
Yeah, but
That's the starting.
But which way to go?
do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, it may not matter to you all, but
Yeah, maybe go
Yeah.
that way and then back around.
that way or that way?
Oh,
You
I'm
think
sorry.
that way?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, and then back around to the
Right.
jetty.
Yeah,
Right.
just right around and come right on around.
And to the,
Right.
yeah, to the jetty and
Okay.
then back.
Right.
And you are talking about down at the end of Virginia Street, putting a dinghy dock.
Yeah, if I
in
could
there.
just expand a little here before I move, I'll change the
Okay.
slide so we can see Virginia Street a little better. But right here is the public boat launch right here, and we've already completed the extension of the ramp. which is wonderful. It's working real well. What the committee proposes is on the corner of that fixed dock that's there, kind of the dinghy dock we're using now, is to go out from that corner with another piece of floating dock that would stick out about 20 feet. That would be water. So when you unload your boat into that area, you're not facing those high sides on both sides. You could actually get on a piece of floating pier. You could pull your boat around to the inside if you want to, and that would be much more safer than what we've got now. And the costs to do that are pretty minimal because it's short. It only takes one pile, and we can connect to the existing dock there and just have an aluminum ramp down. So that's what we're proposing there. So Virginia Street. Man, pretty good this year.
Those are great views.
So what this, and these, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. I learned quick from you. So and these aerial shots were taken just a few weeks ago, right? Yeah, these are real current. So as you can see, this is the Montague docks here that are still under construction. This is the Virginia Street property that has been drawing so much attention for a couple years. So what the the committee came up with is there would be a 15 by 20 foot fixed section of dock, and it would be centered. This piece of property is 32 feet wide, so it would be centered on the property. It would be 20 feet wide, and it would be 15 feet out, and that would have to go in the back to land just a little bit about where high tide mark is, and then centered on that would be a 6 foot wide by 30 foot floating dock that would be used as a dinghy dock, and we would have to have signage on the creek side and everywhere else along the way to make sure that that's policed as a dinghy dock. It's going to be set up so it's not going to handle large boats. So if any boater that comes in that sees that has a large boat, they're not going to want to try to tie it to it because it's going to be a small dock. And that dimension coming out, so you do the 30 plus the 15, you're at 45. It doesn't protrude out any farther than the condominiums or Montagues.
And we will also landscape from this area back. And
Yep.
we have several groups, including the Garden Club of Virginia and the Master Naturalists that we're working on grants. And there is some funding already that has been put aside that would perhaps handle that, but we're also looking at grants for that. And to make that much more attractive and have signage and recognize through signage the Payne sisters and
Right.
direct people, all further into the
Has
marina.
anyone talked to Dale Taylor? His wife was Beatrice Payne Taylor. He has some things he would like to see integrated into that, if anyone wants to speak to him.
Yeah, I've talked to him before, and with this plan that we have, we'll approach him again as a group and see what his ideas are.
They asked, like, where is the floating pier gonna be?
This is the boat ramp.
Right.
So it would be right off of this
Okay.
corner. And
Okay.
It would come straight out, be the same width as the boat ramp now, and it would stick out 20 feet. I don't know how many of you tried to take your boat in and out of the water over there, but it's pretty tough. And it's a great ramp. The problem is it's very dangerous. You can't really use this side at all because it's way too high, and this side is a little bit too high. It's kind of tough to do. So a piece of floating dock there would be nice to.
And on this dock, no boats will be moored on the outside.
Yeah, on Montague's, he's not permitted to moor on either end. So.
Is that the same with the condos as well?
No, the condos, these are day slips. These are
On the
our
edges?
beds.
Okay,
We have day slips here.
Yeah, they're
here,
further
here,
away.
Here, and on this side.
okay.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about impeding anyone who's on Montague's dock, because
No,
he's not
no,
using
he's
the
not.
outer.
There should be room.
And in
Okay.
fact, I mean, was a part of all of this discussion, and if he does do his regattas and things, this would be helpful for it.
Yeah, he normally rents a floating dock or something, but I mean, with his previous setup, so the town, he could work with the town to possibly use that during his regattas, which are usually small day sailors anyway.
Okay, would he also be able to use the dock at the end of Virginia Street that we're gonna put in?
That's what
That's what we're
Okay.
talking
That's what
about.
we're talking
Okay.
about, yeah.
Okay,
That was the
good,
deal.
Yep.
okay.
Yep, Billy?
If you go down and look at the Oyster Festival, when they come in, the last 20 years, they done put a floating dock, but it was about where the little white boat is now, and it comes out. That way you got a chance to turn your boat to get to it. And I don't know why we haven't been doing this, but anyway.
Okay. May I remind you, please, that we have trouble with the recording if you're speaking from your seat? Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Is the dinghy dock at the end of Virginia Street just gonna be for people that are mooring out, or that's for anybody that's coming into town?
It's for anybody that is in a dinghy, and there's been a lot of conversation of what a dinghy is. So that is, it's going to be something that fortunately or unfortunately, it's going to have to be policed. It will be something that the marina staff will be tasked with to keep vessels off of there that aren't supposed to be on it. So, but to answer your question, it can be used by it's first come, first served, but it's intended for dinghies.
Okay.
And they can be motorized
At no charge?
at no charge.
Okay.
For a limited period of time.
Yeah, there will be signs posted that says that you can only stay there for so many
Yeah,
hours.
so that you're not having people camp out.
Right, okay.
Is this gonna be so people can fish off of it and use it?
No, again, that would be up to marina staff to police that. It's not intended, it's a floater. It's not gonna be stable enough. It's not gonna have rails. So it's not really intended to be a fishing pier at all. It's not the
Yeah.
intention.
Just another question, when Ladney brought all this to us, I told him I can't envision it. It's just the way I am. I can't look at drawings and tell. Do you think, is it impeding at all on our
It is.
boat ramp?
It is not.
It is
Oh,
not.
in the boat ramp, on the boat ramp?
Yeah.
You mean is his impeding?
Yeah, I mean, has it made it more difficult to get in?
No.
It has not.
I don't
It's
think
not.
it has.
I went through that with Latney, and I took the plans from that. If he even put a 40-foot boat in that last slip, you still got over 31 feet of clearance to get into the boat ramp.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
And
think-
VMRC also
Right.
okayed it, so.
Yeah, just from that
Well-
angle, it looks like it's a strangled, but
It's
Yeah.
really not.
There
Right.
is, and getting technical, I guess, but as part of the proposal that we went over with Dots of the Bay of doing this little finger pier that's coming out for the boat ramp, there's a piling out here that was left over from the Beth Pager. I don't know if you know where that is.
You mean that dolphin? That was out there? That's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
That would be pulled to give more.
It's already
Yeah.
been pulled.
It's already been
It's
pulled.
already
Is
been-
it gone now?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
gone, yeah. That goes back to,
Yeah.
I mean, 50, 60, 70 years.
Well, that's an excellent presentation.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you.
questions?
I got one question. On the dinghy dock, I noticed it's not gonna come out farther than Montague's. Okay, and it's for dinghies. And I noticed in the report it said it's for basically pick up a mooring. Boat comes in, picks up a mooring, comes over, goes to the dinghy dock. Usually when you pick up a mooring, you get full facilities, to go do your laundry, take a shower, whatever like that. That dinghy dock, logistically, you're gonna be schlepping your clothes down that road
Yep.
with no lights
Yep.
in the evening.
Yep. There still will be, this area up here where that dinghy is right now can still be used. That'll be.
Well, that would be my suggestion is
Right.
put another floating dock at the existing dinghy dock on that would be the west side of it. You have one on the east side of it, then it gives you plenty of room for any number of dinghies to get in there. Because if you look at where you're gonna put moorings, you're not gonna have more than 12, 15 moorings because you gotta have swing of the boat.
If we can get that, yeah.
If you can get that.
Right.
So you're not gonna need a 30-foot floating dock. And that money is not appropriated, other than it has to come out of the budget and the general fund.
Actually, it is.
It has not been appropriated. So.
Dan?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Going over to the ramp.
Dan, could you come up here?
Sure, be glad to. Okay, to the ramp, where your pin is, you're talking about coming out with a floating dock. Now, if you go to the marina in the wintertime, the watermen come in with the oyster, bushel baskets. Pull up right against that dock where that little white boat is
Where the
now.
little dinghy is now?
Are we gonna remove the floating dock so they can get there?
They should still be able to get in there, Dan, or they should be able to pull up and use the floating piece. They would-
Pull straight in, just like when you load
You
your boat.
you could pull in or you could back in on the other side of the floater.
And they can pull into the boat ramp as long as nobody's using it.
Yeah, right. You should,
Well, but that'll block the ramp.
right.
Right, but they're
But-
only there for a short amount of time to offload their catch, and then they're gone.
Isn't that predominantly in the wintertime when they're using that?
That is,
Yeah.
that's from, November through, end of January
It's
usually.
stockfish season, but when they come in, they're gonna offload their catch, and then they're gonna go put it in the slip.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
right.
bear in mind, these are not small boats.
Right.
We have one boat from Pocosin that comes up here, stays all winter. It's 45 feet long.
And he takes up the slip, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. I'm just concerned about unloading the oysters, being able to get in there, turn around, because we do have Latney's Pier now, so you don't have quite as much room
Right.
to pivot, turn your boat around and get up against the dock.
I've seen those captains do some amazing things.
Okay, I've just got concerned about that.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, and just another comment on the dinghy dock off Virginia Street. You know, you're talking about schlepping your laundry all the way around. And I do believe if that is your intention and the smaller dinghy dock is not full, that's where you're gonna go anyway. But if you're just pulling in and you wanna get off your boat and you wanna go up into town and you wanna go get some lunch or do some shopping or something, then the one at Virginia Street would be the one that you would use. You'd have a choice.
I agree with you there, but,
Yeah.
you're gonna be trying to rent those moorings, okay? And they're gonna have to walk all the way back to the main office to pay that rent. And they're gonna have to,
Yeah,
they
but
might as
the-
well bring their clothes and take
Yeah,
a
but-
shower at the same time.
Alternative, counter that, they get a pretty good rate by mooring out.
I don't know, I think we need to check with also, other marinas that do have
do.
moorings. Annapolis is a good one,
Yeah,
I think.
that's what we've done.
Yep. That is one thing that we were unable to really pin down exactly what kind of revenue can you generate off a single
Right,
mooring.
it's not gonna be much, but
Right.
it could be something, because you gotta give Urbana something for a sailboat to come up this river for an hour and a half from the bay.
That's right.
We're giving them a hurricane hole.
That, we are.
That's right. The other thing that's in the package is, and Dan, we propose to put kind of an honor system pay box at the dock. I don't, for early and late hours, or at the ramp, I'm sorry, for early and late hours for people coming and going to pay their dock, or their ramp fee.
How far out, can you, with your pen, show me about how far out this dock's gonna go?
Which dock? Which one?
The one, the dinghy dock.
The dinghy
you
dock?
plan on putting it
It's
in?
probably gonna be, along in.
No,
The other one.
You gotta turn the other way.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
can you
gonna
turn
be-
it,
It's gonna be along about here. It's 30 feet, basically,
Yeah.
from the,
Yeah, shorter than.
yeah, it'll be.
And your fixed dock part of it is back further, so when it does flood on a high, full moon, high tide, that fixed dock's not gonna be underwater.
Well, true, we'll get it back as far as we can. About the farthest will be allowed by VMRC, and zoning is high tide mark, because once you start getting over land, setbacks start kicking in for sideline setbacks.
Explain that again. what
The,
said
the,
that.
the fixed dock, the fixed piece of the dock, Bill was, saying pull that back as far as we can.
Yeah.
By law, about as far as we'll be able to pull it back under the existing permit would be where the normal high tide is. Because once you get farther back on the land, then zoning's gonna kick in to meet setbacks. Setbacks don't apply over the water.
So what will that do if it's a normal high tide?
that mark. And then when we get a full moon high tide,
They don't, they use,
It's gonna
they
go-
use mean, low, and normal high.
is our people that have rented a mooring gonna have to walk through water?
Well, theoretically, you
You're
would,
gonna have it ramped?
you would build up to it a little bit, yeah.
Very good.
Because right now, that property's pretty low.
Yeah.
But we have to be a little caution with that. We don't want to force water over onto the condo or Montague, so.
Is there any waterfront mitigation like riprap or anything else like that gonna be put in?
It's been talked about, put some riprap under the
Because
dock.
that'll affect both areas.
Usage, you're just thinking about a dinghy dock. You're not thinking that somebody can come down there and throw a fishing line on it.
Well, you know, you can't stop people from doing anything they want to do. All you can do is police it and put signage up. You know, we also agree as a committee that it's not just signage that we need at and down in the marina area. There needs to be signage throughout the town getting people to the waterfront.
Yes.
The entire town.
Yep.
You know, about the all the amenities down there. And then, real quickly, if I could, Sarah Jean touched on it a bit. And Dan would be interested in this too. So this section would be considered what we're kind of talking about, the phase one. Phase two of and when I say phasing, it would be taking away that fixed section and doing the floaters and doing the 40-foot finger piers. Phase two would be the section from here around to wherever the end of that is. And then this would kind of be phase three. And what I have suggested, and this is a ways off, is down here where the boat ramp is in phase three, we would end up with handicap accessibility down there on that end to get ADA compliant down to the docks.
And just so everybody understands, there's more than one reason to do this in 3 phases. For one thing, the big grant, boating infrastructure grant, is a 75% reimbursable grant, so you have to do the outlay first. So if you can work on phase one first, you outlay that money, and when you get your 75% back, then you're in position to start working on the next phase. That way you don't do the full outlay up front. It makes it more affordable, plus you haven't torn apart the whole marina at one time.
Exactly.
And one of the things that council did in a previous meeting was approve a $120,000 temporary borrowing facility that we would need to pursue, but that allows you to use other people's money for a short period of time, so that you're not having to use town money to front some of these projects. We went up to 120,000. And so if that facility's granted, then you can borrow against that and pay the bill as it comes due, and so on and so forth.
How are we paying for the ramp that we put on the 30 feet?
Boating infrastructure, are you talking about at the ramp?
No, I'm talking about,
Talk about the new dinghy dock.
yeah, Mrs. Payne.
We set aside $60,000 in the budget for a pier.
Could that 60,000 go towards the pool? Would it be delayed?
We've got a deadline here of October of 2023.
Why couldn't that money go to the pool?
Well, that's certainly a comment that you could make, yes.
Well, Steve, you don't know when we set aside that 60,000
Yeah, we set it aside in the last budget.
last budget?
Was it in the last budget, Roy?
I didn't see that line item.
Yeah, we did.
Is it?
Because
It
we
is.
had
It
big
is.
discussions
It
on
is.
that pier project.
We did.
I don't care if you want to call it dinghy or not, but it's called a pier project.
All right.
Okay.
I do want to point out that the only piece of that
So the
puzzle, when
money's-
we're talking about big funding, the only piece of this whole puzzle that can't utilize big grant money would be that little 20-foot section of dock at the ramp. And big won't do that because it doesn't want to commingle the funds with.
Actually, I think,
our-
Garth, didn't you say that it's been approved? That the floating pier that we, I mean,
At the ramp.
at the ramp.
For big?
No, I don't think they'll, no, not that
What-
one.
No, I think,
What part is approved by big? The remedial. The remedial
Remediation,
underneath it.
Yeah.
okay.
That's what they most recently approved was repairs to the marina and the shoreline,
Not the whole thing.
not the, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Sue Warner?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just a little confused. Will you point with your
Sue,
pointer?
we can't hear you up there.
Oh. Can you point with your pointer where the kayak dock is gonna be, where we can launch kayaks?
It's not gonna be a dock.
Well, right,
It's just a
okay.
beach.
It's gonna
Yeah.
be a beach point. This bridge will be going and there'll be a beach section. Actually, you'll be able to do it along that whole beach section, but the complete open section will be right at the end, up
Over
against.
to
the-
here.
Right.
Okay,
Hmm.
yeah. Right where you had Marcus.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good.
I don't know which way to go.
Mayor?
Dan?
Can you go back to the slide with the boat ramp? Okay, where that little boat is, as I was explaining,
Mhm.
that's where the work boats come in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing, and I don't know if anybody realizes this, that dock, it's a little bit lower and it's very sturdy.
Mhm.
That is what we use for handicaps. And that's the only thing we can do at our marina if somebody comes in on a boat that needs assistance. Now, I don't know if the floating docks will fill that need or not. The narrow floating docks that I've experienced are very wobbly. If you're gonna help someone off a boat,
You need at
you,
least,
you need a floating dock with two pilot, one of the big ones. You know what I mean?
It would not fit that need. You would not want to use ADA accessibility on a floater. So they would still use, now we're only talking about a 4 foot wide, so you're gonna lose 4 feet of that dock is all you're gonna lose. The rest of it's still gonna be available to get people on and off until we phase through to the ADA, but that's all you're gonna lose is 4
So
feet
you're
of it.
gonna have a finger coming out.
Mhm.
How far out are you coming?
20 feet.
Yeah, I think you need to take another look at it.
Okay. And there would be an aluminum ramp down to that because that dock is higher and fixed.
Sure.
And these are just recommendations on the,
Sure.
on the committee.
I'm
It-
trying to make a
Yeah,
recommendation.
it's all up to council.
Thank you.
Dan, I'll interject that Virginia has a grant to allow for ADA compliance additions to a structure that's already been constructed. So your ideas could be taken into consideration by the waterfront committee, and we try and think about that and make it work.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Well, there's a good possibility you won't get the grant if it's not ADA compliance.
That's the whole point of the grant. The ADA grant is
Right. Oh, I see.
to make it ADA
But
compliant.
even though it's farther down the road, at the end of this phase 3, which is right here, we would have ADA accessibility from the parking lot down to the new floaters. It would be part of that one. That's just the best place to do it at that end.
That's just at least 3 years down the road, probably longer. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
But we don't have it now.
Dan's got a point though, but
Yeah.
that's where they offload the oysters, and
Mhm.
I'm not sure a floating dock is
Again, these are just
what
suggestions
they
from the
could
committee.
use. Of course, they don't come here every year either. It's a rotational type thing,
Right.
but that's part of our heritage and our culture. We don't want to discourage them
We
from
have
coming.
5 boats scheduled for oystering this season.
5 boats?
And we want to keep the workboats in the
Oh,
creek
absolutely.
because it designates it as a working
A year
harbor.
ago, we had about 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Any further discussion on this presentation? I think let's, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Presentation.
Yeah.
Great job.
Good, thanks. Okay, yeah, really good. Okay.
I still have some, some follow-up. I guess I'd like to read more about this. I'd like to make a motion to table it and put it back on for next week, our next meeting. so that we can maybe find out more of the, answers to the questions that were asked.
I don't think
And
any
to be able to
action's
read
necessary
over
today.
this.
No, there's no action, there's just a presentation.
Okay,
It's kind of
Okay.
like with the pool finance.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Now, are we going to, did we come to a decision on the need?
Mayor,
Yes.
I went out to my car because I had last month's agenda. But I would like to have the clerk verify, so if we could have just a brief recess, I would appreciate it.
Okay, we are in recess.
Bruce, what's the name of that group?